These are the worst torture methods in Warhammer 40k. Number 6, the Choir of Aberance. Try having sonic amplifiers surgically welded into your throat so that every scream you make is broadcast as a weapon. The Choir of Aberance is a noise marine warband based in the Screaming Vortex, a region of warp-corrupted space ruled by chaos. Noise marines are chaos-based marines devoted to Slaanesh, the chaos god of excess and sensation, who fight using weaponized sound. The choir specializes in something more direct. They demand tribute in slaves, and they've worked out a way to turn those slaves into the music of war. A captured slave is dragged into the warband's workshop. Surgeons graft an array of sonic amplifiers and vox speakers, that's the Imperial term for an audio broadcast unit, directly into the slave's throat, chest, and skull. The hardware is bolted into bone. Every nerve cluster gets wired into the broadcast loop. There's no anesthetic, because the suffering is the point. The amplifiers don't just make the slave louder, they cause continuous pain by their mere installation. Every breath hurts, every word hurts. When the warband marches into battle, the slaves are chained together with golden chains adorned with savage and delicate hooks and herded forward in vast processions ahead of the marines. The chains are barbed, forward motion tears flesh, slaves who slow down or lash with toxic whips that causes spasms loud enough to harmonize. Every scream, every gasp, every involuntary sob is amplified by the implants to skull-shattering heights and folded into the music of the Slaaneshi advance. Their suffering is the soundtrack, their suffering is also the weapon. At peak volume, the choir's broadcast ruptures eardrums and disorients enemy formations before the Marines even fire a shot. The slaves stay alive as long as their voices hold. Days, sometimes weeks. They can't tear the implants out because the implants are wired into their nervous systems. They can't stop screaming because the lashes keep coming. They can't even pass out because the implants are calibrated to keep them conscious. When a slave dies, his body is unhooked and discarded. A new slave is dragged in to take his place. The chain itself is the only permanent member. This entry ranks lowest only because it ends. Eventually. Number 5, the Penal Legion Collar. The Imperial Guard, that's the Imperium's regular human army, has too many criminals and not enough disposable soldiers. The Penal Legion solves both problems at once. If you get sentenced to a Penal Legion, the process starts at induction. Your head gets shaved and tattooed in conductive ink with regimental glyphs marking you as a criminal scum forever. Then a Mechanicus engineer, that's a tech priest engineer, welds a metal collar shut around your neck. The collar contains an inward-firing shaped charge and an integrated dispenser sutured into your carotid line, your main neck artery. It is now physically part of you. The collar does two things. First, your commissar, that's the political officer who keeps soldiers in line through summary execution, holds a dead man trigger. If you disobey, retreat, hesitate, or wander out of range, he fires the charge. The shaped charge is engineered to take your head off without injuring soldiers next to you. Efficient. Second, the integrated dispenser. On command, the collar pumps 4 preloaded doses of combat drugs called Frenzon directly into your bloodstream. Frenzon causes fanatical rage, so intense that unaugmented hearts sometimes burst from the load. You don't choose when this happens, the drug enters you when the officers decide it should. Most Penal Legionnaires never survive their first deployment. They're used as living minesweepers, charged across kill zones to clear fortifications by absorbing the bullets meant for real soldiers. Survivors live in alternating chemical frenzy, and rad burn come down motivated by electro-scourged lashings and decimation. That's executing 1 in 10 survivors after every failure. The 13th Penal Legion, the Last Chancers, fought through Cortanarum, Ichar 4, and Armageddon under Colonel Schaefer. Their best fighter, Lieutenant Cage, survived multiple suicide missions, kept earning amnesties, kept getting reassigned. His final mission ended with him pulled into a warp rift, a tear in reality. The Imperium classifies that as successful. Number 4, the Excruciator Kit. If you want to know how the Imperium gets information out of suspected heretics, it's not waterboarding, it's a briefcase that unfolds into a portable dungeon. The Imperium is humanity's galactic empire, and the Inquisition is its secret police, hunting heretics and witches across a million worlds. Standard issue across all inquisitorial orders, that's their internal departments, is a tool called the Excruciator. It looks like a collapsible bundle of telescoping rods. Pull the trigger, and it springs open into a spidery rack with hoops for wrists, ankles, throat, and skull. A fortress dungeon you can fit in a briefcase. The accompanying Excruciator kit contains a dazzling array of blades, needles, chemicals, drugs, thermal prongs, neural links, and other devices. The drugs are the key. They're calibrated specifically to prevent unconsciousness and shock death. You don't pass out, you don't die from the pain, you experience all of it, lucid for as long as the Inquisitor wants information. The procedure escalates. Nerve clusters strikes with thermal prongs first. Then injection of truth serums and pain amplifiers. Then neural pulses fed straight into your spine. Sessions last days, sometimes weeks. And the Inquisition uses tools like this on its own side too. Inquisitor Gregor Eisenhorn, the protagonist of Dan Abnett's novels, was captured by an enemy rogue trader and tortured with a Xenos version of this kind of tech, the Straussian Neural Scourge. He suffered permanent facial nerve damage that left him unable to smile for the rest of his life. The excruciator does the same job, just standardized. The verdict at the end is always death. Even subjects who confess and are redeemed don't go home. They get shipped to the Astronomicon, that's the psychic lighthouse that powers Imperial space travel, to be burned alive as fuel or arco-flagellated. That's a process we covered in a previous video. Number 3. Mind Shackle Scarabs. The Necrons are an ancient race of skeletal machine beings who traded their organic bodies for immortal meta ones 60 million years ago. We've covered why that was a mistake in previous videos. They have a lot of weird tech. The worst of it is it's small enough to hide in a pocket. Necron royalty, the lords and cryptex, that's their tech priests, carry clutches of mind shackle scarabs concealed beneath their robes. Each scarab is a microscopic robotic beetle engineered as a cybernetic mind control parasite. On command, the Necron releases them. They swarm into the victim's skull, burrow into the brain, and physically interpose themselves between your will and your body. There are 2 settings. Subtle mode, the scarab implants a thought that feels like your own choice. You decide, on your own, that helping the Necron is the right thing to do. You don't notice anything has been done to you. Overt mode. The scarab takes direct control of your motor cortex. Your arms move without your input, your finger hits the trigger, you watch yourself betray everyone you love. You stay awake for all of it, you feel every command, you try to refuse it, and your body just keeps going. In the Fall of Cadia, Inquisitor Katarina Greyfax was hit with a clutch of these by Trazyn the Infinite, a Necron noble who collects living people in stasis like trading cards. Greyfax tried repeatedly to fire on Trazyn during their conversations and felt bile flood her mouth as her finger refused the trigger. She knew what was happening, she couldn't stop it. Removal isn't quick. Archmagos Belisarius Call, the Imperium's most senior tech priest, spent several days draining the parasites out of her bloodstream. The process racked her with terrible agonies, even getting them out hurts. Trazyn uses these things across the galaxy. Inquisitor Valeria, another senior agent, was corrupted by him through the same method and is still operating, possibly still compromised, possibly knowing it. Number 2. The Crucible. The Drukhari, the dark elf race that lives in Komorra, a hidden city in the Webway, a network of tunnels between dimensions, have a problem. After the fall of their civilization birthed Slaanesh, the chaos god we mentioned earlier, Slaanesh constantly drains their souls. The only way they survive is by feeding off the suffering of others. The witch cult solved this through arena combat. Their solution is the Crucible. The Crucible is a coliseum the size of a small city, ringed by black-veined living jade galleries and a toroid reaver bike track, an aerial racing track for spike-bladed jet bikes that loops around the central floor. It's the personal arena of Lilith Hesperax, the Queen of Knives, undisputed champion of every Drukhari arena. Hundreds of thousands of Drukhari pay to watch every night. Captives are taken in raids on Imperial worlds, Eldari craft worlds, and pretty much anyone the Drukhari can grab. They're brought to a homunculus, a Drukhari flesh surgeon who prepares them for the arena. Wounds get stitched close, stamina gets enhanced with stimulants. They're given just enough strength to put up a meaningful fight, because a fight that ends quickly is a poor performance, and Drukhari spectators don't tolerate poor performances. And no one puts on a better performance than Lilith, who fights nude. Yeah, as the day she was born. She wears no armor and uses no combat drugs. Her hair is sewn through with barbs and hooks, her legs and feet are edged with bladed spurs, and her fingernails have been honed to scalpel sharpness. She extends fights for hours, gifting opponents what she calls a single choice wound at a time. A finger here, a tendon there, a surgically open artery she'll cauterize so the captive doesn't bleed out and miss the rest of the show. Above the floor, reaver bikes scream around the toroid track at lethal speeds, trailing monofilament wires that decapitate any captive who steps off the central sand in the wrong second. Every cut is for the audience. The captive watches their own body get carefully disassembled across an evening's entertainment. Drukhari arena losses don't end with death. Take Icteria Galaris, the Flare Queen, leader of a rival Vich cult. She lost a duel in the Crucible, was handed to the homunculus Kariashi, and resurrected as what canon describes as a lumpen beast of impressive size, drooling from a dozen wound-like mouths. Every scar she'd worn proudly in her former life was perfectly preserved on the new monstrous body. She was led back into the arena on a bone chain to a standing ovation. Icteria's new incarnation, according to the source text, has enough pain to last 1,000 standard years. And she's still in there. and the Crucible's audience will be watching her perform for the next 10 centuries. There is no escape. Captives get reshaped, recycled, and put back on the sand night after night, century after century, feeding the spectator economy that keeps every Drukhari one step ahead of Slaaneish's hunger. Number 1. The Crucible of Malediction. And the worst torture in the 41st millennium fits in your hand. It's a small ornate flask, sometimes a crystal lantern, sometimes an urn. The Drukhari call it the kin gift because their finest models are made from captured Eldari farseers, the most powerful psychers of their kindred. The Drukhari raid Eldari shrines and Imperial black ships, that's the Imperium's prison vessels for transporting psychers, specifically to harvest the most powerful psychic minds in the galaxy. The captured psychers are brought back to a homunculus laboratory. The captured psyker is tortured, not for information, not for entertainment. The torture is calibrated precisely to drive the psyker to the absolute brink of insanity without letting them die. When the mind is at maximum agony but still intact, the homunculus severs the soul from the body and forces it into a small reliquary made of crystal or warp-touched metal. Inside the crucible, the soul exists in perpetual sentient agony. It is fully awake, it knows where it is, it knows what was done to it. It cannot move, it cannot age, it cannot die. There is no fade to peace, there's just the screaming century after century after century. In battle, the Drukhari Archon, that's a noble commander, shatters the crucible's seal. The trapped soul erupts outward as a psychic wail of pure hatred and madness, audible only to other psychers. Weak-willed enemy psychers go instantly insane. Stronger ones have their brains cooked from the inside of their skulls. Then the Archon collects the device, repairs the seal, and the same soul goes back into the jar. It's a reusable weapon. There's another side bonus to this. The captive's agony feeds the homunculus's own soul debt to Slaanesh, slowing his eternal soul drain. Every century the trapped soul spends inside the crucible is a century Slaanesh cannot drink it. The Drukhari, who let their own psychic gift wither to hide from Slaanesh, solve their psycho problem by enslaving everyone else's. Farseers can see possible futures, which means somewhere in the crucibles there are minds that knew what was coming for them and could not see a single timeline where it didn't happen. Well, that's the list. 6 methods that make a clean debt sound like a vacation. Thanks for watching, and remember, in the grim darkness of the far future, the worst thing they can do to you isn't kill you.